Shafi, can you see my video?
Not yet, sir.
Because I changed my video setting, but it's not coming. Is it managed from the host?
You'll have to first, I think, share the screen. So we are already live, so we're just starting.
Because I can't see myself. That's the problem.
You can be seen, sir.
Okay. Share screen option. Thank you. That's good.
Yes, sir. It can be seen.
Now the screen is shared. Can you see the first screen, first slide?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
There is one more problem which I always face. I am moving the slides. Can you see the second slide now? It takes time to move from one slide to another slide sometimes. I don't think so.
Can you do a slideshow, sir? Put it on slideshow.
Just. It is on the slideshow, but when I am moving the slide, the slides are not moving, I think. When I put on a slideshow and move the slides, it doesn't move. Is it moving? Just a minute. Okay. Can you see the slides now?
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
I had moved the slide. Can you see the second slide?
Yes.
So this is the way it is working. When I am coming on a slideshow, it doesn't move. It do not move.
No issue, sir. We can do it this way only. So we'll start,
This
sir.
way. We can if you.
Okay.
There are 34 participants.
So a very good evening and a very warm welcome to all the participants of today's sports webinar being conducted on the topic Genetics and Sports Performance by the Sports Authority of Goa as a part of the online sports education initiative. So what determines athletic ability and what are the limits of human sports performance? There was a time when no one thought a human could run a 4-minute mile until Roger Bannister did it in 1954. Today, thousands of athletes compete in ultramarathons, Ironman triathlons, 24-hour races, and records are routinely broken. Many physiologists agree that these factors include nutrition, motivation, environment, and advances in technology. But after this, sports performance limits may have to do with genetics, and genes can actually determine the true potential of an athlete. To guide us on today's program, we have with us Dr. Ashish Kulkar. Just to introduce you to Dr. Ashish, he's presently working as the head of Department of Sports Management and Coaching at LNIP Gwalior. He was the former Deputy Director, University Sports Board of Symbiosis International University, Pune, and played an important role in establishing the University Sports Board, developing sports policies, and creating state-of-art sports and fitness infrastructure at the campus. After his bachelor and postgraduate degree in physical education and sports sciences, he qualified NET in June 1999, and he was awarded with the Doctor of Philosophy in Physical Education and Sports Sciences in June 2006. With over 19 years of experience in teaching and coaching physical education, fitness management, and sports management, Dr. Ashish has published a complete guide of fitness management, personal training and nutrition, theory and practice. And he has also been working with many national and international bodies. He was appointed as the Director Community Coaching Development Scheme of Khelo India in the year 2019-20. He is also the treasurer of the Sports Management Association of India. He's a member of the National Sports Education Board made by the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, School Sports Education Board in India. He's a member of the Committee for Establishing the Center of Disability Sports by the Ministry of Social Justice. He was also a member of the Committee for Developing National Curriculum Framework for Sports Sciences, framed by the Ministry of Youth and Sports Affairs. He's a member of the draft committee to draft the National Sports Policy 2022. He's a member of the advisory board of National Institute of Skill Development, Mumbai. He is inclined towards research and has published around 44 national and international research papers and presented 24 papers in national and international conferences and published 2 books on fitness management. His active presence and as a resource person in many international and national webinars, conferences, and HRDC centers has inspired many and helped shape their professional and personal lives. The list is really long, sir, and I mean, we're glad to have you today on today's program. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedule and agreeing to conduct this program. I'm sure the knowledge you're going to be sharing on today's program regarding genetics and sports performance, which is a very unique concept, and there's a lot of research still being done on this aspect. It does play a very important role where talent identification is concerned, and also where coaching of players is concerned. So a very warm welcome to you, sir, on behalf of the Sports Authority of Goa. And before I ask you to take over and continue your session, I just like to inform all the participants that at the end of the program, in the chat box, whether you're attending on Zoom or YouTube live, there will be a link shared in the chat box. Towards the end of the program, you need to click on the link, feedback form link, and put in your details and submit. And we will send you a participation certificate in around 10 days upon verification. So over to you, sir. You can take over.
Thank you, Steffi. It's been a very extensive introduction which you had given to the participants, not needed. I remain to be on the ground. And the first thing which I want to share here with all the August audience was today being part of this particular webinar, Genetics and Sports Performance, which is organized by Sports Authority of Goa, is a unique initiative, I think. Though I am in a rush to move, as I had already mentioned, Stephanie, that I have to go outstation. I have some other assignments and family assignments which I have to go for. But this topic I couldn't resist, and that's why I agreed to, take this topic today. It's a very dear topic to me, and sometimes we need to know what and how much percentage of role genetics plays in the performance of sports. There are a lot of researches which has been conducted abroad, but there is very less which is available in our country. And as I said, so there are many things which we need to think. We need to, see how we can help using this as a tool for our, talent identification. So coming from where I have, and we will start with a general introduction of what gene means, how it plays an important role in our, performance. I'm very sorry that I cannot go on in slideshow mode, because as soon as I am moving on a slideshow, the slides are not moving forward. It is taking time to move from one slide to another slide. So I have to continue with, without slideshow mode. So please bear with me. I am also trying to see if I can run the videos, which are very important part of today's, presentation. Mr. Anand Naik wants to say something.
No, sir, you can continue. It's just
Okay.
in the chat box.
So if there are any questions, I'll be very happy to answer your doubts at the end of the session, because I had kept that time for you people to, have an elaborate discussion on this particular aspect. See, God has made all of us as a unique. If you look at this picture, every human being, every race which you see, has certain characteristics which differs from genetic, or you can say from their features, from their eye lines to their color of skins. So these are certain features or characteristics which makes one individual different from another individual. But had we ever thought of, two women trying to lose weight, and they took the same low carb diet and exercise, but one has been considerably trying to reduce the weight, and another one didn't get that result through the same exercise and diet routine which they had followed. But we need to think why these things happens. The similar things happens when two boys try to go for a bodybuilding, and their weights similar. They take the same high protein diet. They do the similar workouts, but they show different results on the bodies. And it again raises a question why it happens. If you can see, there are two girls, similar age group, and they train under the same coach, and both are athlete, but they both worked hard for endurance training, but out of them only one reaches the podium and another one didn't show the results. So we need to know the answers for these type of queries, which as a coach or as a physical educationist, you must know what are the reasons, and those reasons are pretty sure are hidden in our genes. So today, let's find out what is hidden in your genes, because the natural species which we are grown with, or we are known as a engineers of certain characteristics which we have in human beings. Human beings can see, beings can think, human beings can perform, human beings can have an emotions, and with that they have certain abilities which they show, which relate them to the sporting abilities, and which you will see an individual to individual which differs even if they provide the similar kind of environment or similar kind of training. And that's where I think the genetic endowment is the one important thing which we lose upon when we talk about the performance. This will be the flow of presentation. I will introduce you with the genes today, genetics, what is genetic engineering. We will talk about athletic performance and what are the determinations or what are the genes which are important for the athletic performance. What are the genes required for making an elite athlete or a champion. I will also talk about what is gene therapy, how gene therapy has been done. We'll talk about two methods of gene therapy, in vivo and ex vivo. We will possibly also talk about the risk of gene doping, and is world aware of gene doping. And yes, we'll conclude with what we can do and what is the future possibilities with knowledge of genetics. First, let me make you understand what gene is. Gene is simply an hidden material inside the cells. Every cell has DNAs, and genes are passed from, and these DNAs are responsible for transferring your characteristics from your parents to their children. So these genetic material has the characteristics which have been passed on from one generation to another generation. And if you have this genetics characteristics, we usually see from parents to child, whether it is the way your child walks, which comes from your parent, whether the behavior of the child which we see, which you saw in their parents, is similar. There has always been a talk about the nature versus nurture, that there is always, people say that some athletes are born, they are natural, and some athletes have been created through keeping them in a proper environment and training and nutrition which is provided, and as a result they become the athlete. But genetics is something which is already inside you in the form of DNA. But environment, it's all the conditions in which you grow up. Okay, environment is the condition which is given around you, and whether it is the sports environment which you get, whether it is the musical environment which you get, if that favorable environment is provided to these genes, your chances of becoming an elite athlete grows higher. So it is being something which needs to think about and research about. Some of the interesting facts which we need to think about is already the world has known what are the definite genes which can help you perform, what are the genes which are needed for a best athletic performance. And there are already 200 genes in the body that are fitness related gene, which is already been researched and known, which are responsible for your improving your muscle strength, which is responsible for your metabolic or endurance performance, which is important for your aerobic fitness, and yet 50% strength of flexibility. So if your parents have small build, very unlikely that you are going to become a large, huge, or bodybuilder as per the genes transferred from your parents to you. So it is very important that we should acquire an appropriate knowledge of the gene or DNA structure, which is suitable for an athletic event or a sports in which you want to participate in the near future. So this is something which we should do as an coaches or researchers. I would like to share with you a real story of or a biopic of a younger archer, Dolly Shivani. There are a lot of Sai coaches. I think they are attending today's session, and they might be knowing this particular girl. And this particular story is based on Vijayawada. Shivani has drawn an attention. She created a national record in archery, and when she was 3 years old, she's made a record of 200 points in 5 and 7 meters distances in compound segment in 2015. And from there itself, she came into the limelight. And Volga Archery Academy is the one who is maintaining this particular athlete, because many of the people they're aware of that the name and fame sometimes spoil the athletes. That's what has happened with the case of Budia from Odisha, if you remember. So this particular girl, how she has came into existence is something to be talked about, because you must know that this Shivani, Dolly Shivani, is a child which is brought by, one of our famous coaches, Cherry Kuri Satyanarayana from, Sai, and he has shattered by his certain demise of his son, untimely death. And he was also a very good archer and participated in Commonwealth Games. And Cherry Kuri himself was a international famed coach of archery who has, taught or trained several Indian archers, whether in compound archery, such as Venom, Jyoti, Surekha, who is Asian Games medalist, or Chitaboma, Jignas, or Ritu Chatterjee. They are all Commonwealth Games or Asian Games medalists and Olympians he has produced. But because he has lost his son, and after a few months, he again lost his daughter by snake biting, and his entire dream of creating the Commonwealth and Olympic athletes was shattered. And he was sitting on a chair and thinking about, my whole life I had dedicated for archery, and whatever is in my blood, the archery which is in my blood, in my genes, will go for a waste now. Nobody is there to take care or transfer this legacy to. And then came a brilliant idea in his mind. He was so determined, and he was so what you say, he trusts his instinct so much that he used advanced medical methods of test tube baby, and he brought Shivani to this world. And Shivani was introduced to archery. And वो कहते हैं ना, लोग बच्चे जो है आपके गोवा में फुटबॉल खेलना सीखते हैं बचपन में, वैसे ही Shivani was her first love was archery. She took archery as soon as she took birth, and she started walking. She held the archery, or she took bow and arrow in her hands. Shivani was introduced to archery in just 1 year or 2 years. She became expert in archery, and this is one of the biggest gifts we will be getting from this particular coach. And in the years to come, because none of the training part has been sent to the world in the form of videos, and this particular athlete has been managed by Volga Archery Academy. They are very particular about that this talent should not be wasted, and they don't want to make her into a limelight. So this is one of the real stories which we had come across, and this has the strong message that potential genetic makeup or a DNA makeup can really bring up a good athlete if we provided the right environment at right age. There are another athletes which we talk about is Usain Bolt. As you know, Usain Bolt is Jamaican athletes, and when he is lining up against other athletes who are almost certainly having the similar abilities, but what makes him difference is this Jamaican athlete has a very different gene, which is actinin 3, which is needed for your fast contractions of the muscles, and that's why he's already ahead of the people who are sitting on the block with him. Similar case was reported, and genetics and sports performance was Lance Armstrong. You all must be knowing this particular athlete. This athlete was much talked about in the year 2007-2008 when this athlete was caught in the doping net, and he was running a parallel, gene doping academy along with the WADA. So this particular athlete is a US athlete who has won Tour de France for 7 times. 7 times he won this particular title, which is most toughest title. Nobody has won this. And this particular athlete or cyclist has demonstrated at the age of 15 when his aerobic capacity was higher than anyone else in his age group, and he was already having an aerobic capacity which was reflected through his genetic endowment and makeup to be in the elite class of 1 to 2% of athletes in the worldwide. So this was certain aspects which makes him different already from other athletes who are participating in the same event. So let's talk about whether it is the athletic performance determined by genetics. Are there any evidences that your athletic performance are based on the genetics? So if you look at certain examples which I had placed and certain researches which has been done, what type of athlete you want to make or what type of athlete you want to select for your games depends on what type of genetic endowment that athlete has, needs to be studied. Suppose you need an athlete who has to be a very good build, or you need an athlete to have a very good muscle building athlete, then you should look up for a gene of ILS6. If you are looking at a heart rate recovery or fast heart rate recovery or sprinting athletes, you should look up the gene of CRP and PPARD for burning of fats very fast. If you are looking at an athlete whose muscle mass and strength athletes for power, then you should look at ACVRB1B gene, which needs to be detected in athletes. So what I mean to say is, if you want to select an athlete with a certain characteristic or the sports which you are choosing, you should have an athlete with the right gene and a genetic endowment. No doubt training and environment will give him an additional chance in succeeding in that particular sports. Now, there are certain research studies which are going on in the universe. 23andMe is a company which is hunting for connections between genetics and athletics. They are one of the labs which are situated in US, and they are providing their knowledge to Aspire Sports Academy. I don't know how many of you knows about Aspire Sports Academy, and this is one of the world's most biggest sports academy, which is situated in Qatar, Arab. And this particular lab, it gives the connection between the genetic makeup of an athlete along with their abilities and athletic performance, which their genes will be good at. Now, if you look at this particular slide, these are the making of the athletes, and there are more than 200 genes which have been already linked with the performance or athletic performance. And these are the genes which have been lined up here, though I am going to explain you some of the genes which are already been studied and can be researched in athletes when you are selecting talent for that particular sports. Now let's talk about a making of a champion. Now, you all know making of a champion doesn't just depend on the genetic makeup, but how you train that genetic makeup, in what conditions you train, what environment you give, what is the nutrition being given, how you manage that particular athlete. what is the training and recovery process you had used. So these are certain aspects which you really look at when you are preparing or making a champion. But making of champion should also involve performance profiling. Now these are certain companies which are giving you performance profiling. This DNA Fit is one of the companies. When I was working with Symbiosis, I had met one of these person, and they do genetic profiling of your families. And when they do genetic profiling, they are using this genetic profile to know what kind of diseases were passed on from your forefathers, and what are the possibilities of these diseases been coming to your way, whether it is diabetes, whether it is hypertension, whether it is any other disease for that matter. So this was that in those days, it was 10 years or 15 years back. This particular strategy was to know the genetic profile of the families, and how the diseases can be passed, like cancer, or for that matter any hereditary disease which can be passed from one generation to another generation. But now it has gone to an extent where a coach can do a performance profiling, and though it is a little costly, but you can do a performance profiling of your athlete, and it will help you add in identifying an appropriate training which can be given to your athlete, whether a strength training, whether it lacks in endurance training, what type of fibers or fast twitch or slow twitch fibers which are available in his body. It will also help you know what maximize the athletics motivation and adherence to the program, and it will also help you monitor any changes over the period of time. So genetic profiling can be a boon to the sports coaches in the near future. And yes, our government is also thinking of one of the genetic labs being created in New Delhi, which we had already recommended to our ministry while we were drafting the new sports policy for our country. So making of champion is not only the product of nature and nurture, but now today it is proved that the science has gone far beyond, and you cannot deny the role of genes, which is very important in selecting the right candidate for the right sports and right ability of person with the right characteristics which we need for that sports. So if you want to develop an elite athlete, there are many aspects which has been mentioned and talked about, whether it is right nutrition to be given, whether it is the physiological testing been done, whether it is the physical characteristics which you need for that particular sports, whether it is the psychological characteristics which you need for that athlete to grow as an international, whether it is the cognition, the ability to learn faster, whether it is the socio-economic background of an athlete, whether it is the training which you impart to the athlete, but rest of all, nobody talked about the genetic endowment as the talent identity. And that's where we had lacked for so many years. So we need to test the specific genes for specific physical performance. And I would urge the youngsters who are listening to me, or some of the researchers or physical engineering students who might be the part of this particular webinar, this is something we can do as a part of contribution to the sports. I am already doing 2 of my researchers who are using a performance of physical performance of swimmers. We are finding out the specific genes for swimmers who can swim longer. And if we can get those genes in the areas, from specific areas, we are collecting samples. Though it is a costly affair, but we had tied up with hospitals, and we had tied up with the neuroscience department of our Jivaji University, and they are helping us finding out this sports specific profiling of swimmers. So this will be a great help for the country tomorrow. Now there is one particular sports gene which I will be very much interested in talking to you, and this particular gene is actinin 3 gene, or ACTN3 gene, which has got actinin proteins in them. Now, what these actinin protein do, if you are aware of the sliding filament theory, you know how the muscle fibers and the sarcomeres makes bonds with actinin, and when these bonds are created, the muscle contracts faster, and they slides over each other very with a strong bond. So when you have an actin filament, which is actinin 3, there are actinin 2 filament, which is already there in all of us. But actinin 3 is another protein which is found in Jamaican athletes. And this particular protein makes a difference, They are the proteins which are only found in fast twitch fibers. Fast twitch fibers are also of two type, type 2A and type 2B. And this is found in type 2B, and they are very rarely found in the athletes. So actinin 2 is expressed in all the muscle fibers. Everybody has this particular. But actinin 3 is the only which has found in some of the athletes, and this is very rare. And they make this particular bond while we know the sliding filament theory, in which we make stronger bonds when we contract our muscles while doing the sprinting activities. So this particular actinin 3, if we find in some of the Indian athletes, can be a great help to know what sprinters we can produce in the near future. Because when our sprinters are standing or sitting on the block with Jamaican athletes, we are already far behind because they have this actinin. So we have to find the right gene for right sports, which is very important. Of course, that doesn't mean you will not train or you will not do the workouts. You have this gene, but this gene will be explode only when you have a right environment and right coaching and training, which is given to that particular person with the right set of genes. Now, what happens in these genes? Let me talk about this actinin 3 gene. This is, if you can see the slide, all of you must respond in between so that I am aware of that I am only not a single person on the screen, but there are people who are listening to me. So someone can respond. Can you see this slide I had changed?
Sir, the participants are on mute, but you are audible and
okay.
You can be heard, just to avoid disturbance during the session.
Definitely. So thanks a lot for informing me. Now, this particular genetic makeup, I had taken just one DNA of one muscle fiber, from which I tried to show you the elaboration of how coded and non-coded region has been shown. If you'll see this single line, which has been shown, horizontally, this is the non-coding region, okay, where there is no characteristic, something particularly known as non-coded region. If you can see, there are 2 bands, 3 bands somewhere on these lines. Now, these bands are known as coding regions. Now, these coded regions means they have some characteristics which have been transferred from their parents and which will be transferred to their children. So these coded regions are the regions from where we can infuse the genes and can do a genetic endowment. हम gene को transfer कर सकते हैं. We can transfer the gene into this coded region of the interest, the gene which is for interest to us. So this can be done, and this is the actinin 3. This actinin 3 is, again, there are 2 regions like glutamine and arginine are the coded regions, which are known as Q and R, and which is known as RX region, R or X chromosomes. When they come together, they produce this particular gene. So chromosomes are, lined up in 3 different varieties. There are 3 ways in which chromosomes are lined up, possibility of genetic type of actinin 3. Actinin 3 has 3 genetic makeup. That's why they are called as ACTN3. The first is RR, okay. The second one is RX, and third one is XX. I am again showing it on the slide: RR, RX, XX. Now, when in ACTN3, if you got a coded region of RR that or RX for that matter, these genes are beneficial for elite athletes who wants to engage in power and endurance. Those athletes who want to engage in power and endurance, whether it is throws, whether it is javelin throw, whether it is jumping, whether it is long jump, or for that matter, you want to go for powerlifting, weightlifting, this is the gene you are interested in. But XS, if you have got XX gene, this is not beneficial for athletes. Though it is actinin 3, but XS coded, then it is not beneficial. So if your muscles has got RR and RX, this is the gene we are interested in. Now, most of the athletes who are found at Olympic level, if you will see this slide, the lower part of this slide, here we had tried to explain the genotype and the frequency among the elite power or sprint athletes who has participated at Olympic level. And the study was made and the PhD was done where they had found that most of the power Olympians has got RX gene, or most of the female power athletes had got RX gene, and most of the athletes had got RR or RH gene. So this is something which is very interesting to find. That means this genetic makeup is required for power athletes. Now let's talk about through this particular figure. Now, if you have got XX and RR individuals and have a similar muscle fiber type composition, then XX are more prone to muscle damage. XS gene is not good for sporting ability, and during eccentric exercises, you can have more of injuries. You might have seen certain well-built athletes, they are very good, they train very hard, but at the end of the day, they always face injuries. One of the athletes I remember was Ajit Agarkar. Have an ankle or some kind of leg injuries throughout his career. Though he was a bowler, lean and thin, but he always suffered this injury. And that may be the reason, because that time our genetic makeup was not known in those days. If you got excess individual and have a lower value of muscle strength and power, and you have an RR genes with them, then you have the right good amount of genes for your become a weightlifter or power lifter. And if you've got RR genes, you can also become a powerful or sprinting athletes you want to become. So these are certain genetic makeup which can help you. If you can study this genetic makeup in the athlete, this will help you choose the right type of sports for him. I just want to ask a few of the Sai coaches, and you should keep this question at the end of the session. This question to all of you who are coaches. You all take athletes on the basis of physical performance. We take their fitness test, whether it is 50-meter dash, whether it is stand and reach test or sit and reach test. We conduct a lot of tests on the students, and then we say that this particular student is good for sports, and then we give them admission in the Sai hostels. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, sir. This is
okay. This is the method.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you ever felt that you had chosen certain athletes, and after 4 or 5 years on working on those athletes, you felt like, oh, he was so good. He was so good in running. He was doing push-ups. He was doing sit-ups, whatever test you have conducted. And after 5 years, you felt like is the not right person for that particular sports. You felt like this?
This also does happen, sir.
Okay. Okay. So we will discuss this particular scenario in the end of the session. Now, what is the human gene map which is being for athletes? These are the genes which you should be interested in. If you want, you can click a photograph of these genes. And these are the most 18 genes which we need to find out in Indian athletes, and that's what we are trying to do as an researchers. हर आदमी को एक जीन को लेकर देश में स्टडी करना चाहिए, किस एरिया में वो जीन मिलेगी. We need to search those genes, and we have to bring those athletes from those areas to Sai centers to be trained. So ACE, these genes are most important. ACED is involved in fast twitch muscles, and ACEI seems to help you in endurance athletes. So these are the genes which you can find from the skeletal muscles. And ACTN3 I had already spoken about. Endorphins is again one of the very important protein or genes which are found in central peripheral nervous system, and they help you in pain modulation. And if you have got these particular endorphins high in numbers, that means you can bear pain for longer time. EPOs is something, erythroprotein, which has been, as I was talking to you about Lance Armstrong, he was the one who injected EPO, and it is most important for hematological immune system, because he was that in those days he was also suffering with cancer, blood cancer. This particular EPO increases your red blood cells and oxygen delivery system. So you can really delay the fatigue or lactate threshold for that matter. There is another gene called high, which is very important for, if you want to build muscles or increase your muscle size, power and recovery, you should look upon high. And HIF genes, which is again regulates your hypoxia or response to your training. One more very important gene I will show you with certain examples, IGF-1. And this particular gene, if you do a genetic replacement with this IGF gene, a single gene, if you manage to change in the muscle fiber, it has a very tremendous effect on the size of the muscle and power of the muscle. And this was done by one of the Belgium bull experiment I will talk about in subsequent slides. And if I can show you the video, I'm keeping my fingers crossed if the video works. Another gene of interest is PPR delta, which is found in our adipose tissues in skeletal muscles. Adipose tissues, as you know, are most important tissues which gives padding to our hips and shoulders and back of our thighs. And this promotes your fat metabolism and increases number of slow twitch muscle fibers. And the last is VEGF, which is vascular endothelin, and this induces development new blood vessels. Whenever there are new blood vessels which are formed, it also gives rise to the RBCs. And as you know, for this matter, we choose blood doping as one of the methods for increasing our endurance or aerobic capacity for that matter. Now, this is the gene I was talking about. This is insulin-like growth factor IGF-1, and it is also known as myostatin as a protein which is found in our body. There was a lean and very thin bull which was injected with this particular protein, and you can see the change which has brought that particular bull became more muscular. Bullfighting is one of the most important or very known sports in Belgium and Sweden and Spain, and they use these gene mutation for creating these type of bulls. Now, this IGF is also used
sir, can
in
I
humans.
just interrupt you?
Yes.
Sir, Ashish, sir.
Yes.
Can I just interrupt you? Can we just try the slide share just once if it's happening?
I can
we
do
just
that.
try?
I can do that. I'd move the slide. Can you see the earlier slide of IGF?
Now we are on repair of muscle injuries. That slide.
Okay. Repair of muscle
Once
injury.
if you can try the slide share if it's happening, would be nice.
Is it working now? Repair of muscle injuries?
Yeah, but it's on that normal screen. Can we do a slideshow?
I had already done the slideshow.
Okay, I think we can continue.
Taking time to. Okay.
Yeah, no issue, sir. We can continue this way.
If it has been seen, it's good. Otherwise, why to spoil our program?
Yes. No, we can continue, sir. No problem.
Okay. So repair of muscle injuries, that's where human beings are using IGF, and IGF is partly controls the building of muscle and muscle cells, and they are very helpful in repair of muscles by stimulating these satellite cells which are there in muscles. Now these satellite cells and the amount of IGF which is injected, because of that, the satellite cells start growing around the area or tissues which have been ruptured in the muscles, and that's help you repair your muscles faster. And it has been now been used by most of the needs for fast repairing myostatin protein. So this is already been used by medical fraternity, but now it has been seen used by most of the athletes. Now this is one of the photograph of leg muscle of one mice which was treated with IGF-1, and you can see the right side, they are bigger than the leg muscles of untreated mice. The mice which was not given IGF-1 can see a thin muscle as compared to the right side where you can see IGF-1 treated mice and his leg muscles. You also see similar IGF injected poultry farms में आपने देखा होगा, you might have seen the chickens which you eat has the similar myostatin which has been injected in the chickens, which increases the strength or increase the size of their muscles. And this is what they use for even in Bangkok or in Malaysia or Singapore. You might have seen most of the people interested in cockfighting, or they are engaged in this type of fights where they inject their animals with these genes. Another gene of interest today is PPR delta. This was one of the experiments which was been done, and they find when this particular mouse was injected with PPR delta, run twice as far as normal mice runs. So suppose a normal mice can run a 500-meter distance. This particular mice can run 1 kilometer. So he ran 1 hour longer than the average 90 minutes of normal mouse. It also, this particular gene also increase the slow twitch muscle fibers in this particular mice, and increase in fat burning in adipose tissues. So this particular gene has been very helpful in developing the aerobic capacity. Now I'll try and run this particular video for you. Just and see if it can you.
Sir, you may have to close this slide and then share again.
Just a minute. Okay, can you see this? Can you see?
Sir, your normal slide is only showing. The video hasn't started.
Okay, just a minute. Okay. Okay, I had stopped my screen share now.
Yeah. Now you can share in the video, sir.
Just. Okay. Okay, can you see the video slide now?
Sir, not yet visible.
Not yet visible. You can still see the slide, or it is?
No, your slide has also gone. So.
Okay. I will do it once again. Is it possible for me to?
requesting all the participants to please hold on, as I think sir has slightly got disconnected. He's joining us again. Ashish sir, are you with us? Your mic has to be unmuted, sir. Ashish sir,
Okay. Can
requesting
you
you
hear
to
me now?
yeah, I can now. You can
Can you
be
hear
heard.
me?
Yes, you
Yes.
can be heard.
Okay. Was discussing. I am unable to run that video, but I will like to share that video with you, and you can send it to the participants. Uh, the video shows how genetic, doping has been done, and how genes have been, introduced into the human body, and that has been done through some of the process which is known as genetic engineering. Is the slide visible to you?
Yes, sir. The slide is visible. If there's any link or of the video that you're telling us about, sir, you can just share it to us, maybe in the chat box, so we can put
That
it out
will be
there.
better. Yeah,
Okay.
that I'll do.
Yes.
Okay, I am still this is working. If I'll move the slide, I don't think so. It is working. I just resumed the internet connection again. My goodness. It's taking a long time. Okay. Now let me explain you the process of gene therapy, which is used in introducing the gene to a human performance for the human performance. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, you're audible. You can
So
continue.
in case, suppose what is the process, how we make genetic changes in a human being? We had seen a lot of experiments being done in the form of Belgium bull. We had seen a lot of experiments being done on the mice. We had seen, you might have seen the clones being made for the sheep or goats, which has been created. But does really it has such experiment has been done on some of the athletes in the world? So answer is yes. There are a lot of athletes who had been brought today into the Olympic, and they had been the result of the genetic endowments and genetic changes which has been made in their parents. You might have known some of the athletes like Chinese basketball player who was 10 feet tall. He was the highest player ever played in the Olympics. There are many volleyball players who North Korea or South Korea, which is known for their characteristic of short heights and very glowy skins. But you might have seen nowadays they've got athletes which are more than 6 feet, 6 feet 5 inches, 6 feet 8 inches, who are playing in basketball and volleyball, and they are dominating the world in these sports now. Nowhere now Americans or Canadians or Argentines are dominating. So these evidences shows that definitely there is something which has been done with the gene replication in their parents, and because of that these athletes are created today. Now there are two types of gene therapy which are used to introduce the gene in human being. One is in vivo gene therapy, and another one is ex vivo gene therapy. As I said, in vivo means we don't create genes or we don't transfer gene from outside, but what we do is, as I had shown in the genetic makeup, we just introduce the genetic virus in that particular gene, and which helps them mutate that particular characteristics and create a new cell. And that encoding of that new characteristics is been introduced into that particular gene. This has been done through a gene gun. There is a gun which has been used, and this virus has been infected and causes the mutation of genes in that particular muscle structure. Now, this is called in vivo gene therapy, in which we inject the virus into the muscle or into the part where we want to introduce it. The second part is, as is the case in, you might have
Ashish,
seen.
Sir,
Yes.
I just have to tell you, we are still on the green slide.
Yeah, it is not moving. That's what I'm saying. This is not moving. That is the problem. I'll stop share, and should I do it
Can
again?
you just reshare again?
When I am resharing, it is still rotating, the cursor is not moving. Just I have to do one more thing. It's not at all moving.
If you can just reshare the.
Not happening, not happening. Maybe I'll leave and I shall join again, if that is possible.
You can just try once more, sir, sharing your slide. But these issues do happen in online programs, so it's
That is
totally
part and
understandable.
parcel,
Yeah. You can just try sharing again, sir.
Yeah, but still rotating, going around. It is cursor is not. That's why I'm unable to move the slides.
Maybe you can just close and reopen the PPT, sir.
It is not even closing. I tried that also. It is not even closing. I stop share.
I think you can just close the slide and stop the slideshows, closing the PPT and then just reopen it again. Due to some issues that Dr. Ashish is facing, we would just request the participants, maybe you would just take a 2-minute break and be back till we resolve this issue. Yes,
Okay,
so
so
I
I'm
think we
back
have you
again.
back. Yes.
Yeah. I'll try and share the screen again, and
Yes.
let's see what happens. So the screen, you
Okay,
can
and
see.
now we are on the genetics slide, so you can go ahead.
Yes. So genetics is playing very important role in deciding the fitness today. Whether angiostensin converting enzymes are there, which are very important for I version and D version of ACE gene, which is found in athletes. Whether you want to know what are the muscle fiber types in our athletes, fast twitch muscle fibers or slow twitch muscle fibers. These are the genetic makeups we coaches are interested in mostly. If you, as in the beginning, I remember Steffi talking about Roger Bannister's story, wherein Roger Bannister in 1960s, he ran for the first time, he ran 1 mile run in 3 minutes. But I also give this particular example to my students, saying that it was just a mental barrier which was broken by one of the athletes. And what people don't know about the Roger Bannister, and after that, is there are 10 athletes or 20 athletes who broke the same world record in similar year, which is not spoken about. So it was the mental barrier which was broken by the people. But what is interesting in this particular slide, which I am showing you right now, the world record time of women's marathon since 1960 and today, if you'll see, has decreased more than 1 hour. Now it is just not by minutes, or it is just 1 hour by which it has been reduced. So elite athletes may be born with a favorable genetic makeup, but to realize athletic potential, it requires years of training and a correct way of training them and give a right type of environment to these gifted athletes is much more needed. So when I talk about elite athletes, they are the one who responds extraordinary to your trainings in order to unlock the already present potential. So if you have a person with a right genetic endowment or right genetic makeup, but don't have that particular attitude and they don't respond to your training that way, they don't have that mind makeup for that particular training, then it is a waste. So people are also trying to find out the genes with the right attitude and right mindset to stay within. So making of gene is not only making of champion is not only the genetic endowment, it is also the training and the effects of training on the right type of genes which you are using. It is also the interaction of that genetic makeup with the environment you are providing them, and it is the both genetic and environment which you provide. So with this, I was trying to convince you regarding how genetic endowment can be very helpful for some of our athletes. But if you will see the evolution in doping, gene doping is one of the most talked about in this particular era. When we had seen in the early histories in the century where we used certain drugs as a part of doping, we had seen in Roman era where they had used some of the stimulants as doping, and today we can see some of the mechanical doping technologies or some of the doping technologies which are being used in the form of mechanical doping, or for that matter, the swimsuit which is really created with the nanotechnology, which reduces the timing of swimmers nowadays, which has been banned by WADA. Now you can see this is an ordinary bicycle, but the people are using these cheating methods to excel in the sports, and this will be there since the sports is there, right from the evolution of sports and the competition which has been at the highest level nowadays. This particular cheating methods will remain and will change as the time comes. You can see this particular, the latest evaluation of high technology swimsuits, which are on display recently. And FINA has banned this particular swimsuits in 2009. They accomplished another prolific round of world records, which were created by wearing these swimsuits, because there was a clear progress and evidence beyond the Speedo laser racer swimming suit, where the athletes who wore this swimming suits has reduced the timings considerably. So pressure drag was reduced because of this, and this is the reason such type of doping was used. Similarly, you might have seen the sex change and gender verification in sports, and it reminds me of very of Rashmi Rocket, and it also reminds me of a very promising athlete gender test on Pinky Pramanik, who was gold medalist in 4x400 meter relay in 2006 Asian Games, and she was again a verdict of a gender verification and the levels of testosterone which she has. This also gives me an idea whether the women which has got a higher level of testosterone can be a very good athletes or a power athletes in the near future. So these are certain researches, or these are certain questions or doubts which are there, which needs to be talked about, and the coaches are the most important persons who should understand the scientific importance of these researches which can be used. If, as I had seen, the prohibited method, gene doping is also one of the prohibited method which is mentioned in the WADA manual, and there are certain ill effects of gene doping which has been seen, where there are various methods which are used on the sports persons, where some genetic replications were done, and as a result there are certain complications which were done. There are X-linked hemophilia patients with gene therapy develop leukemia, a very deadly disease, and causes a blood thrombosis or blood cancer for that matter. There was gene APO which was found in monkey and make blood thrombosis and anemia in some immune attack was there, and the blood started coming out of their mouth and other parts of the body. So these are certain complications which may happen due to gene doping, and of course we have to see what are the advantages and disadvantages which comes with the gene doping. Now there are certain tests which has been developed scientifically to see what genetic doping a person has done, and this can be done through a biopsy. Biopsy report can show you that if there is any suspected muscle tissues which are growing under the skin or under the muscle, or if there is any suspicious evaluation of biological substance within the body. So biopsy is one of the tests which is available right now, and which can be used. Now, there is an international center for East African running sciences established in Glasgow, and they had studied certain genetic makeups of African and Jamaicans. And they found that 70% Jamaicans habitants have ACTN3 gene versions that produce ACTN3 proteins. And that's why Americans or Canadians normally take these African athletes and give their citizenships in their countries and make them play from their countries. So 28% of Jamaicans are heterogeneous of actinin 3 gene, and which has the same effect but has a lesser degree. And most of the Australians only have 30% were found with the speed protein actinin 3. So Australians are not doing good in speed, but they are very good in endurance athletes. So at least because they had been developed in the environment where they were kept as slaves from where their genes had come from. So at least 1 billion people worldwide must be completely deficient in actinin 3. And this is the rare chance of Jamaicans being the greatest sprinters, which is evidence in the world Olympics, World of Olympics. Now, the most important thing, what are the advantages and disadvantages of, including gene or genetic makeup as part of your, talent identification? If you'll see some of the advantages, if genetics have high importance in their ability, we can find out the right type of genes with the right type of ability, and it can be a very good combination for the sports which we are looking at. But if genetic plays a huge role in ability, then athlete without particular gene may lose their interest in that particular sports. So that is one of the disadvantages also which comes with advantage. There can be very easy to separate high performance athletes at a younger age. Sometimes it do happens that you select an athlete with a genetic endowment, and at the later stage you find that he lose interest in that particular sports, then that particular genetically gifted athlete is a waste. So it is better that at what age we should test this genetic endowment is very important. So prospective athletes without particular genes will give up and will be less practicing to be amateur or pro performance athletes. So these are certain advantages and disadvantages which will be there. But of course, every program which I had seen, whether it is Canadian athletes, the long-term development athletic programs, whether it is US athletic program, whether it is, when we talk about Italy or Sweden, these countries have shown, or European countries have shown, that they have a certain amount of genetic testing which they do for finding out the talent identification. And there is last thing which I want to share with all my friends here on this particular screen is 3 distinct requirements to become an athlete. This has been researched by Malcolm Gladwell, and his thesis is presented by him, and he's a very well-known author and researcher and a spokesperson for sports, which is very widely been seen by people all around the globe. And he has given 3 distinct requirements to become an elite athlete. He has studied all the Olympians all around the world, and he found there are 3 characteristics, 3 distinct things which make an elite athlete. The first is the talent and ability, which is largely influenced by genetics. He mentioned that, yes, there is talent, there is ability, but it should have that genetics to suit that talent and ability. Because if they don't have that genetics, they cannot perform at the highest level. Second, very important, if even though they have talent, they have ability, they have genetic makeup, but they don't have that passion for that particular sports, that attitude for that particular sports, that talent and ability both will not survive. So that passion, that drive toward that particular sports is needed. And the third very important is that was 20,000 hours of practice. He studied that every Olympian who reaches the podium has at least done his bit of practicing for 20,000 hours, and that's the key to success, and that's the formula he brought to the world stage, and he is most acknowledged scientist for that matter. So these are certain things which we had seen today, and but at the last there's one message which I want to give it to one and all. that the world of medicine can make or break human beings, but the world of genetics can mold human beings into superhuman beings, or into other words, world champions. So I am really thankful for giving me this stage. It's better to be an alert cat than a sleeping dog. That's the message which I want to share with you today. And I keep this session open for the any doubts or question answers if you have any. So Steffi, thanks once again for giving me this opportunity. It was a wonderful session, but with some technical problems which we had faced. But I hopefully I feel like I was been able to communicate what I want to communicate with all of you. Thank you.
Sir, indeed, it was a very, I must say, knowledgeable session. And I think this is something very important, knowing about how genetics plays a role, because we have a lot of coaches who may not be totally aware about this concept. So, especially when you initially identify talent, I think understanding how genes plays a role is very important. It was a real interesting session. So, we did have some technical issues in the middle, but I think it was really wonderful. I just, before we take the questions, I just like to inform all those attending on Zoom and YouTube, the feedback form link has been posted on Zoom, and it is also being posted on YouTube. So kindly click in that and fill in. There are participants who are also attending on YouTube, and many were not able to attend today due to duty being put. FIFA is being organized in Goa.
Okay.
But definitely this link of this program will be shared, and I hope that everybody watches this program.
FIFA under 21.
FIFA Women's World Cup, sir, is being held in
Okay.
Goa. Yeah, so lot
Because
of them.
your camp, FIFA under 21 camp was going to be held in LNIP only. That's
Okay,
why I
sir.
was.
So due to that, a lot of our coaches have not been able to attend. But this link of this program, this is a recorded program, so this link will be definitely shared to them, and I think this knowledge also would prove extremely beneficial. Sir, before we go to the questions, I just like to ask the participants, if anybody would like to ask a question, you can either type it in the chat box. If we have one of our coach, Nilesh Naik, had typed some questions. Nilesh, can we have you? Or maybe let me ask you the first question, sir.
What question he has asked, I will be able to answer.
Yeah, no, I'll just ask you a question from my side, sir. Where
Okay.
gene testing, the gene testing facility and the cost, if you could tell us, like, like suppose a normal coach who's at the center, he wants to know how expensive is this, or
I'll tell you, it is not that expensive what we thought. It is, if you want to go for a single gene, it will cost more, about 24,000 to 50,000. But if you want to do a gene profiling, coming from what background he has from genetically, if you want to find out from his forefathers and ancestors to what can be his gene profiles, then it will be costing around 1,95,000 to 1,50,000. So that's the cost which comes for a single athlete. But if we can do it as a part of a talent identification program through government under Khelo India scheme, I think that can be a very good preposition which we can think about, because we are already spending a lot of money on athletes. So why not to put some amount of, if there's a lab which can be created, regional labs which we are thinking will be created by the government, and if that can be done, then this particular cost will be reduced. But if somebody has to go with genetic profiling, then it will cost around 1 lakh.
Okay, sir, the question that Nilesh, like one of our coach at SAG, had asked is, can you just give me a minute? I'll just read it out. Can anyone be tested for a genetic abnormality, or and how? If you have any abnormal genes, is there any, just even for a normal lay person, can gene testing be done to find out if there is any abnormality?
Yes, gene testing is very much available, and it is a very normal phenomenon nowadays. It can be done even to know what is the, especially I must mention here, Mr. Dev, that gene testing was first came to know what are the defects and problems which has happened in the certain people, especially you might have seen a lot of blood cancers which pass from one uh, that is already a part of their families. You might have seen most of the people in heredity, they carry the diabetic gene from one person to another, sir. If my father is having diabetes, there are mostly 80% chances are there that I will also carry a diabetes in certain age. So this is one very important aspect which these gene testing was done, for finding out the patients who has got abnormalities. And for that matter, if you want to find out any of these abnormalities which can come in your children, can be tested by these gene endowments.
Sir, another thing to add to that question of yours, suppose like I get myself gene tested and I find out that I have something abnormal. Can any change be made at this point, or any or medication or something that can revert that particular gene fault?
See, I was expecting this type of questions because first of all, I am not a doctor or nor a scientist. But yes, there is one thing very important, that abnormal genes are not easy to be, changed or replicate. If we can do that, that's the great help a person will do for a human race. If we can be able to find out a gene which can cause a cancer and we can replicate it, yes, there are experiments being done and there are many researches are being done. And in case if such research comes across, then obviously everybody will come to know. But till now, such type of genes are very hard to change or to replicate.
Okay, sir, if you can just give me a minute, sir. If there's any participant who, okay, there's another question. How can we
there is
find
one
out?
question from Brinda Popat.
Yes.
How can we find out which type of gene we have? Okay.
Correct.
The whole discussion was on there are two types of gene therapy which we use, and for RR and excess genes, you have to go to the DNA profiling companies. There are certain private companies which are available. One of the companies I know is in Mumbai. DNA Fit is one of the companies, and they can give you what type of genes you have, whether it is RR. If you want to tell them that, see, I want to do a gene profiling for sports, and I am looking for these sports, and do I have certain genes so that I can carry out these sports? They'll be able to tell you whether you have RR, XX, or RX type of genes. That is very easily done.
Okay, I think, sir, since you have also some other, you have to proceed elsewhere, I think we can wind up today's program. So it was a real wonderful session, sir, and I think this is, the 28th or 29th webinar that we have conducted, at least that I have been involved conducting in. And I think today's topic was extremely interesting, and I have actually followed the entire webinar. So thank you so much, sir. And
thank you.
It was really wonderful having you today, and hopefully we can do some more programs in the future also.
Sure, sir.
So thank you, and all the participants, the link has been posted in the chat box. So please fill in the link and you will receive your participation certificate of today's program within 10 days. So thank you to all the participants once again. Thank you, Ashish, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
And this is me, Steffi Cardozo, signing off for today's program. Have a great evening ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.